Deep neuroscience. Close your eyes and let the day dissolve. Beneath the noise of the world, beneath the thoughts that never stop, lies something deeper. A vast, quiet intelligence. Your brain. For the next 3 hours, we'll journey into that mysterious landscape, not to stimulate you, but to calm you, not to teach with effort, but to drift into understanding. This is not a lecture. It's a lullaby made of science, a slow descent through the circuits of the mind, as your body rests and your brain begins to dream of itself. Welcome to Deep Neuroscience. The origins of the brain. The brain is not a thing you have, it is what you are. Somewhere deep inside your skull, 100 billion neurons are glowing quietly, like stars scattered across a silent night sky. Each one, a tiny living thread of thought. Each one, connected to thousands of others. They do not sleep, but they know when you do. And long ago, long before you took your first breath, your brain began as a soft, hollow tube of cells, simple, silent, a beginning. From that tube, a universe unfolded, layer by layer, cell by cell, until it became the organ that would someday wonder what it was. You are the result of that wondering. The brain studying itself. So tonight, let's take it slowly. Let your body melt into the bed beneath you. Let your breath follow a quieter rhythm, and let your mind follow mine, into the deep folds of the brain's quiet story. Before you could speak, before you could think, your brain was already listening. Floating in the dark warmth of the womb, it began responding to rhythm, your mother's heartbeat, the soft murmur of voices, the sound of blood, moving like a tide. You were not yet born, but your brain was already preparing to meet the world. Even now, somewhere in its folds, those first impressions remain, not as memories, but as patterns, as comfort, as rhythm, as the slow wave of calm that may be rising in you right now. The brain grows by building upon what it senses, and what it senses most is you. It learns you, your habits, your fears, your voice, your pace. And it does this without needing permission. It is always watching, always shaping. By the time you were born, your brain had already formed over 100 billion neurons. It will never make that many again. They bloomed rapidly, like spring buds on every branch. And then the pruning began. What you used, you kept. What you didn't, quietly withered away. This is how the brain becomes efficient. Not by hoarding, but by letting go. Let that be a lesson for tonight. Let go of what you don't need. Let your thoughts drift past without grasping. Let silence bloom in their place. Because the brain, your brain, knows what to do. It has done this before. Every night, it takes you apart, gently, and puts you back together with more grace. So now, as you lie still, remember, stillness is not empty. Stillness is when the brain does its most beautiful work. Think of your brain, not as a machine, but as a living story. A story made of electrical patterns, flowing ions, pulsing waves, and billions of branching trees. It began with the simplest commands: contract, relax, survive, and over time, those commands turned into something else. Remember, hope, love. That is the miracle of this organ. A soft mass of tissue, able to imagine infinity. Just behind your eyes, your prefrontal cortex quietly hums, helping you reflect, reason, and plan. Deeper inside, the thalamus waits, like a silent gatekeeper, deciding which signals to let through. Lower still, the brainstem, ancient and automatic, keeps you breathing, keeps your heart beating, whether you're awake or asleep. These layers are like sediment in time, new on top, ancient beneath, and through them all pulses a single, unbroken current of life. That current is you. So as you begin to fall into sleep, know this: your brain isn't shutting down, it's switching tracks. The conscious mind, the narrator, goes quiet, and the deeper brain takes over. It will sweep away what is unnecessary. It will file what is useful. It will heal, repair, restore, while you rest in the dark. Even as you sleep, your brain is alive with purpose. Let it work, let it wander, let it dream. The whispering forest. Inside your skull is a forest, not of trees, but of living cells reaching, branching, listening. They are called neurons, and there are more of them in your brain than stars in the sky you fell asleep beneath as a child. Each neuron is shaped like a tree, a central trunk with roots and branches. The roots, called dendrites, gather information. The trunk, the soma, holds the cell's core, and the branches, called axons, reach outward, searching for others. They never touch, but they whisper. Across the tiny space between them, the synapse, a signal leaps. An electric pulse becomes a chemical message, a molecule crossing the gap, touching the next cell and igniting it in turn. This is how thought travels, not as a single flash, but as a wave through the forest. You are not made of thoughts. You are made of the paths they leave behind. Every memory you hold, every word you've learned, every person you've loved, is written in these silent connections. The more you think something, the more the neurons grow toward each other. What fires together, wires together. This is neuroplasticity. Your brain is always rewiring itself, learning, adapting, healing, even now, as you lie still in the dark. And when you sleep, this forest comes alive in a different way. Signals slow, patterns shift, the chatter quiets, but deep in the shadows, some neurons begin replaying your day, like wind rustling through leaves, gently organizing what matters, and letting the rest fall away like old branches. Let it fall, let it go. There's nothing to hold on to tonight. Your brain knows what to keep. It's pruning, gently, lovingly, making space for the light to come through. A single neuron is silent on its own, but link it to another, and it begins to speak. Link it to billions, and it begins to think. Stillness becomes sensation. Spark becomes story. And yet all of this, every flicker of memory or mood, depends on tiny chemicals floating across even tinier spaces. These are your neurotransmitters. Dopamine, the molecule of motivation, released when you anticipate joy or strive for something just out of reach. Serotonin, a stabilizer, gently balancing your moods, lifting your sense of peace like mist rising at dawn. GABA, the whisper that calms the storm, the neurotransmitter that gently quiets your neurons, telling them it's okay to rest. And melatonin, the sleep messenger, rising with the darkness, it softens your brain's rhythms, preparing your entire body for night. These molecules are ancient, older than language, older than thought. They carry no words, but they carry meaning. When your body is safe, serotonin flows. When you are focused, dopamine glows. When it's time to sleep, GABA and melatonin wrap you in stillness. And right now, as your breath slows, these signals shift, like the changing light before a snowfall. The brain's electrical chatter softens, its waves begin to slow, from fast and jagged to slow and deep. Asterisk beta waves, quick, alert, anxious, fade first. Alpha waves rise, bringing quiet wakefulness. Then come theta waves, soft and wandering, the dreamlike threshold. Finally, delta waves arrive, deep and slow, like ocean swells rolling through your skull. You may already be floating there now, not quite awake, not quite gone. Your neurons are speaking a slower language, and in this rhythm, something beautiful happens. The hippocampus, the brain's librarian, begins sorting through the day. Which moments to keep, which ones to let fade, which emotions to remember, and which ones to gently erase. Sleep is not an absence, it is a reorganization, a form of inner gardening, and as your neurons fire in gentle loops, the brain trims and strengthens what matters. This is how you learn, this is how you grow, even as you dream. So let your mind wander now, let the forest do its work. The night is long, and the neurons are listening. Your brain is not one mind, it is many minds, folded into one. Each region, a specialist, each structure, a quiet expert. Together, they form your experience. Let's begin at the center, the hippocampus, two curved structures, one on each side, shaped like seahorses curled in the dark. This is the gateway of memory. The hippocampus decides what will be remembered, what will be forgotten, what matters enough to become part of you. When you're awake, it records the world, conversations, sensations, passing thoughts. But when you sleep, it replays them. In slow, rhythmic bursts, it sends your memories to the cortex, the outer layers of the brain, for long-term storage. It's like a librarian shelving books by moonlight, deciding which stories are worth keeping. And beside it lives the amygdala, small, almond-shaped, quiet but intense. It is your emotional compass. It senses threat, feels fear, stores your strongest emotions. Even while you sleep, the amygdala stays watchful. It may color your dreams. It may whisper to your heart if something feels unsafe. But tonight, it feels calm. There is no danger here. The amygdala rests. Above them both lies the thalamus, a gateway, a filter. During the day, it is your relay station. Every sound, every sight, every touch passes through it. But when you sleep, the thalamus closes its doors. It silences the outside world. Asterisk. It says, not now, and so you drift inward. Finally, the prefrontal cortex, the wise overseer. This is where reason lives, where planning happens, where you imagine the future. But at night, this part of you goes quiet. This is why dreams feel strange, why logic dissolves. The rational mind lets go, and in its place, older parts of the brain awaken, emotional, sensory, visual. This is how your dreams become surreal. The painter takes over. The storyteller speaks freely. The editor is asleep, and through all of it, your neurons are still whispering, still passing signals across synapses, still sculpting the mind beneath your consciousness. You don't need to control any of this. You are being carried. Drift with it. The hippocampus will hold your memories. The amygdala will soften your fears. The cortex will rest. And you will become lighter. Let it all go. Let the brain's ancient intelligence guide you now. The whispering forest is still at work. The architecture of the whispering brain. Your brain is not one mind. It is many minds, folded into one. Each region a specialist. Each structure a quiet expert. Together they form your experience. Let's begin at the center. The hippocampus. Two curved structures, one on each side, shaped like seahorses curled in the dark. This is the gateway of memory. The hippocampus decides what will be remembered, what will be forgotten, what matters enough to become part of you. When you're awake, it records the world, conversations, sensations, passing thoughts. But when you sleep, it replays them. In slow, rhythmic bursts, it sends your memories to the cortex, the outer layers of the brain, for long-term storage. It's like a librarian shelving books by moonlight, deciding which stories are worth keeping. And beside it lives the amygdala, small, almond-shaped, quiet but intense. It is your emotional compass. It senses threat, feels fear, stores your strongest emotions. Even while you sleep, the amygdala stays watchful. It may color your dreams. It may whisper to your heart if something feels unsafe. But tonight, it feels calm. There is no danger here. The amygdala rests. Above them both lies the thalamus, a gateway, a filter. During the day, it is your relay station. Every sound, every sight, every touch passes through it. But when you sleep, the thalamus closes its doors. It silences the outside world. Asterisk, it says, not now. And so, you drift inward. Finally, the prefrontal cortex, the wise overseer. This is where reason lives, where planning happens, where you imagine the future. But at night, this part of you goes quiet. This is why dreams feel strange, why logic dissolves, the rational mind lets go, and in its place, older parts of the brain awaken, emotional, sensory, visual. This is how your dreams become surreal. The painter takes over. The storyteller speaks freely. The editor is asleep, and through all of it, your neurons are still whispering, still passing signals across synapses, still sculpting the mind beneath your consciousness. You don't need to control any of this. You are being carried. Drift with it. The hippocampus will hold your memories. The amygdala will soften your fears. The cortex will rest. And you will become lighter. Let it all go. Let the brain's ancient intelligence guide you now. The whispering forest is still at work. You may think your brain is made only of neurons, but neurons are only half the story. The other half are the caretakers, the glial cells, the silent ones. They don't fire like neurons. They don't think or remember or feel, but they watch, they clean, they protect. They are the brain's gardeners, trimming excess branches, clearing away debris, nourishing the roots of your mind. And at night, while you sleep, they awaken. Your brain, so dense, so delicate, cannot cleanse itself while you're awake. But when you fall into deep sleep, the glial cells expand their reach. They open tiny channels through which waste is washed away. Proteins that, if left to build up, could cloud your thinking, or one day lead to disease, are swept away in the tide of rest. This is called the glymphatic system, the brain's own rinse cycle, and it only works while you sleep. So when you surrender to slumber, know that something sacred is happening. The body may lie still, but deep inside, a purification begins. And then there is something stranger still, a network of brain regions that lights up, not when you're active, but when you're still. It is called the default mode network. The DMN, it activates when your mind wanders, when you're daydreaming, remembering, imagining. It links your sense of self, your past, your inner world, and it is one of the brain's most mysterious systems because it is more active when you're not doing anything at all. The DMN hums beneath the surface, weaving memory and meaning, running simulations of who you are. And in dreams, it may play its deepest role. As the body sleeps and the outer world fades, the inner world becomes luminous. Images rise from below. Feelings shift form. Stories emerge from the folds of the mind, not as logic, but as metaphor. This is your brain dreaming you. You are not simply the dreamer. You are the dream. The neurons fire. The glial cells cleanse. The default mode weaves its silent thread. And all the while, you drift deeper into the calm that only sleep can bring. The night is not endless, and sleep is not always still. There is a rhythm to it all, a pulse that has been going on long before you existed. This rhythm is called the circadian cycle, the internal clock that keeps your brain in time with the world around you. Your brain knows when it is day. Your brain knows when it is night. At dawn, the light enters your eyes and signals the brain's suprachiasmatic nucleus, that small but mighty cluster of cells in the hypothalamus. It is the brain's master clock. It tells your body when to wake, when to rest. As light dims, the pineal gland begins to secrete melatonin, the hormone of sleep. It rises as the night falls, inviting you to relax, to unwind. You may feel the first wave of drowsiness now. It is the ebb of the circadian rhythm, the gentle calling of your body to its rightful place. Sleep is not just a reprieve, it is a return. It is a return to the cycles that have existed long before clocks, before screens, before cities. Your ancestors slept by the light of the moon, and so do you. Your brain was built for this rhythm. Your body follows it naturally, like waves lapping at the shore. As night deepens, your body temperature drops, your muscles relax, and the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, guiding you gently into rest. Sleep is not passive, it is active, a time for repair, a time for restoration. Your brain in its deepest sleep stages begins to clear away toxins, those molecules that build up during waking hours, like debris in a forgotten alley. And in the deep stages of non-REM sleep, your brain waves become slow, rhythmic, like distant thunder rolling across the sky. This is when the glymphatic system is most active, clearing away the waste that clogs your neurons. Each deep breath you take, your body is rejuvenated. Each beat of your heart, your cells are restored. As you sleep, your brain is also busy recalibrating your emotional world. In REM sleep, when the world is darkest, your brain revisits the emotions of the day, replaying them, reframing them. This is where the amygdala works quietly, reducing the intensity of any emotional trauma, reshaping it into something more manageable. Dreams are not simply stories. They are the brain's way of making sense of itself, of learning from its past and adjusting to its future. And just as the tide moves with the moon, your brain moves through its own rhythms, waking, dreaming, clearing. With each cycle, you grow, and with each night, you are born again. Rest in the knowledge that your body and mind are perfectly attuned to these rhythms. Every pulse of your heart, every breath of air, is part of a dance that has been playing for millennia.
The deep sleep cycle. Sleep is not just the absence of wakefulness, it is a transformation. As you drift deeper now, your body becomes lighter, and your mind, still as a calm lake, begins to surrender. You may not even notice it, but the shift is happening quietly, like a soft wind changing direction, or a shadow slipping from the light. This is the beginning of slow wave sleep. The delta waves are here. The brain is no longer thinking, it is healing. Slow, deep waves pulse through your mind, like waves rolling across a distant shore. You do not need to do anything now. You have done enough. Your body knows how to rest, how to restore itself. The blood flows freely through your veins, nourishing your muscles, repairing your cells. The immune system strengthens. The heart slows, beating in perfect rhythm with the earth's pulse. And in the deepest sleep, there is nothing to hold on to. No worries, no thoughts, no images, only stillness. This is deep sleep, the stage where true repair happens. It is not just physical rest, but emotional and mental restoration as well.
In these quiet moments, your memories are solidified, the connections between your neurons are strengthened, and your mind becomes clearer. Your body's energy reserves are replenished. The tissues that wore thin during the day are mended, and the muscles that grew tired are soothed. Everything is being realigned in the deepest parts of you. The work is subtle, but it is profound. This is the place where the mind heals, where it can reset and recalibrate for the day ahead. Here, there is no need for effort. Simply surrender. The brain's electrical activity slows even further, and your body sinks deeper into rest. There are no dreams here, no distractions, only rest, only peace. As you fall deeper into the quiet of deep sleep, your body and mind are fully at ease, connected to the ancient rhythm of life. Trust this moment. Trust your body to know what it needs. Rest, surrender, heal. Sleep is not a break. It is a return to balance, a return to the self. And in the morning, you will rise anew, rested, restored, and ready to begin again. But for now, there is nothing but stillness. And in this stillness, there is everything. The sacred stillness of deep sleep. You are no longer falling asleep. You are deep within it now. This is not a drift. This is an arrival. You've passed through the twilight of drowsiness, through the gates of REM, into the cathedral of pure stillness. Here your brain is not thinking. It is restoring. Your consciousness has pulled inward, like the tide drawn back into the ocean. You are nowhere in particular now, and that is the miracle of it. There are no images, no words, no shapes, only waves, slow, low delta waves, sweeping across your mind, like soundless thunder. Each wave repairs you. Each wave renews you. Asterisk. This is the realm of the deepest sleep, and it is sacred. Your brain is operating at its most synchronized, as if the billions of neurons are breathing together. The chatter is gone. The self is gone. What remains is pure function, pure rhythm, pure restoration. The pituitary gland pulses gently, releasing growth hormone into your bloodstream, not just for children, but for you, for healing, for recovery, for strength. Tissues are being repaired, bones fortified, muscles softened and reset. This is the only time your body has to rebuild itself, undisturbed. And what about the mind? Memories are being woven into the architecture of who you are, not just facts, but meaning, emotional resonance. The story of you, synapses that were too active, are gently trimmed, like a careful gardener shaping a bonsai tree. Neural patterns are rebalanced. Sensory impressions are archived. Emotional tension is dissolved. You are not consciously here, but something greater is at work. A wisdom older than thought, older than language, older than fear. You are not gone. You are being carried. You are not empty. You are being filled with stillness, with clarity, with life. There is no effort here. There is no control here. The part of your brain that strives, that plans, that tries to fix and hold and figure out, it is asleep now. And in its absence, something deeper speaks. You are enough. You are safe. You are whole. In this vast inner dark, there is a glow, not of light, but of balance. You are in the heart of deep sleep. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to do. There is only this moment. Let it take you. Let it hold you. Let the silence do its work. You are not dreaming now. You are not thinking. You are not even aware that you are sleeping. This is the core. The brain has slowed to its lowest frequency. The delta waves move like a tide beneath time itself. No images, no sound, no name. You have returned to a place that feels like nothing, and yet holds everything. The ancients called it the underworld, the mystics, the womb. Neuroscience calls it slow-wave sleep, but it is older than language, older than you, older than even memory. Here the brain is not processing, it is becoming quiet, becoming healed, becoming whole again. There is a silence in this sleep that is not the absence of sound, but the fullness of stillness, a sacred hush, as if the universe itself has taken a breath and is holding it. This is not unconsciousness, it is deeper than unconsciousness. It is the ground of being, the empty field upon which the rest of you is written. You are not you right now, not the thinking you, not the remembering you. You are the pulse of the nervous system. You are the echo of ancient rhythms. You are the still water beneath the choppy surface of waking life. And here, in this hollow, you are being remade. All the noise is gone, the identity is gone, even the question of who is gone, and in that disappearance, something extraordinary happens. You are held by the body, by nature, by life itself. Every breath you take, even in this depth, is guided. Your heart continues its rhythm, slow, steady, deliberate. Your cells continue their repair. Your immune system becomes a quiet army of restoration. There is wisdom working in your favor, without needing your direction. You are a living process, and that process continues, even here, even in this abyss. Sleep is not a pause, it is a recalibration. It is the ancient work of survival, of growth, of transformation. You are being reset. On the deepest level, let go of even this thought. Let go of the letting go, and fall into the silence, beneath silence. You are home.
The brain's theater of symbols, something stirs. Not the body, that remains still, heavy, wrapped in the dark hush of night, but the mind begins to move. Delta waves begin to fade. Faster waves take their place. Theta, alpha, flickers of beta. You are not awake, but your brain is lit once more, like a distant galaxy awakening in the void. This is REM, sleep. Rapid eye movement, the paradox of sleep. Your brain is as active as if you were awake, yet your body remains paralyzed, perfectly still. This is nature's safeguard, a soft lock on the muscles, so you can dream without moving. And now, in the theater of the mind, the story begins. The amygdala, the center of emotion, stirs and lights up. The hippocampus, guardian of memory, hums gently. The prefrontal cortex, the part that judges, that filters and edits, falls silent. The censor sleeps. The poet awakens. And so the dreams unfold, surreal, symbolic, non-linear. A city made of glass, a familiar face in an impossible place, running without moving, flying without wings. None of it makes sense, and yet it all feels true. Why? Because the dreaming brain is not bound by logic. It is speaking a different language, the language of symbols. During REM sleep, your mind is weaving together pieces of memory, bits of emotion, scraps of imagination. It is not just telling a story, it is solving a puzzle, sorting your day, reordering your pain, exploring possibilities your waking mind won't dare touch. Sometimes dreams feel strange, even terrifying, but they are not your enemy. They are your brain's attempt to integrate the impossible, to take the things that don't fit, grief, fear, longing, and fold them gently into the larger picture of who you are. Your brain does this every night, whether you remember it or not, and the REM cycles grow longer as the night goes on, as if the brain saves the deepest dreaming for when you are ready. In this sacred theater, time collapses, space bends, the impossible becomes beautiful, the painful becomes bearable,
And when you awaken, though the dream may be gone, the work remains, the healing remains. So let it happen now. Let your dreaming mind speak in the language it knows best. It is safe here. You are protected, and your subconscious is unfolding its own quiet masterpiece. Let it play. The mind's silent cinema. The body sleeps, but the mind is a river of light. Faster waves ripple now, not the slow calm of deep sleep, but something quick, electric, liquid. The brain has become a dream engine, a projector, hidden in the dark, casting images across the vast screen of the self. Here, the rules are different. You do not move through the world. The world moves through you. And what a world it is. One moment you are walking through your childhood home. Another, you're flying over oceans made of memory. The walls of logic melt. Time is not straight. It coils, loops, fragments. You speak without words. You see without eyes. What you experience in REM sleep is not fantasy. It is the subconscious mind, speaking in its own ancient code. The dream is a messenger. It delivers emotions unspoken, thoughts you were too busy to feel. It is your mind, writing poetry with the ink of your life. And beneath every surreal image, every strange transformation, there is meaning, not always literal, not always obvious, but real. In REM, the brain engages in emotional triage. It visits the wounded parts. It touches your fears in disguise, cloaked as shadows or mirrors, or mist trains. Asterisk. It visits your desires, not as facts but as forests, as music, as color. The amygdala, emotional center, pulses. The memory systems reconfigure, and slowly your mind processes what it could not. During the day, some dreams will feel profound, some will feel absurd, but all of them are part of the weaving, the reconstruction of the self, the dissolving of old wounds, the whisper of tomorrow's strength. And when you awaken, the dream may slip through your fingers, like smoke, like fog, but the changes remain. Your chemistry will be different, your stress lower, your memory sharper. Dreaming is not an escape, it is a re-entry into yourself. So if you are drifting now, know this: the images you see behind your closed eyes are not random. They are meaningful, they are healing. You are in your own sanctuary, a world built just for you, by the deepest parts of your own mind. Let them speak. Let them dance, let them whisper their secrets in silence. This is REM, and you are dreaming, safe, deep, renewed, the mirror of the dreamer. You are dreaming, and you know that you are dreaming. A gentle lucidity has arrived, not like waking up, but like opening your eyes underwater. You see the strangeness of it all, the fractured architecture, the bending rules, the faces that shift, the rooms that repeat, and yet, it all feels real, because in this moment, you are the architect. You are not passively watching. You are shaping, sculpting, being the world around you. What is a dream, if not the mind, creating a universe out of silence? You are the silence. You are the story. Asterisk. The trees in your dream breathe with your breath. The oceans carry your moods. The sky changes with your thoughts. This is not a hallucination. This is not confusion. This is conscious sleep, the mind touching itself, dancing with its own reflection. Neuroscience calls this lucid REM. Mystics called it the astral field. Poets called it the second birth. But names do not matter here. What matters is that you are witnessing your own subconscious. From within, you may fly, you may fall upward, you may walk through mirrors, speak to people long gone, enter temples made of starlight, and all of it somehow speaks to something real inside you. Because in dreams, metaphor is not decoration, it is truth. Your fear might appear as a labyrinth, your longing as an open sky, Your inner child might show up, not as a memory, but as a companion walking beside you. And here's the wonder. In REM sleep, you can rehearse your future. You can grieve safely. You can rewrite the past. Not in the real world, but in the emotional world. The world that defines how you live, how you heal, how you carry yourself. The sleeping brain is not limited by logic. It is not trapped in time. It can place your past and your present in the same room. It can transform trauma into a symbol and then dissolve the symbol with light. In this space, you are healing at the level of story. You are the dreamer, the storyteller, the healer, and the healed. You are dreaming, and you are safe. You are sleeping, and you are You are resting, and something deep within you is waking up. Let it happen. Let your inner self speak in colors, in symbols, in floating rooms, and infinite staircases. No dream is wasted. No image is meaningless. Everything you are seeing is you. You are the mirror, and you are finally seeing yourself without distortion. Drift deeper. Let it go further. You are in the lucid core of sleep. You are home.
Memory, identity, and the hidden mind. Even now, while you sleep, there is something in you that remains, not awake, not thinking, not narrating, but aware in a deeper way. The you that you speak of, with a name, a story, a timeline, is not a single thing. It is a constellation, a pattern woven by memory, held together by attention, reinforced by repetition. During the day, your identity is busy. It answers to emails, speaks in meetings, worries, plans, performs. But when you sleep, that structure unravels. The brain loosens its grip on the mask it wears. Your default mode network, the seat of self-referential thought, dims and softens. The narration slows, the ego dissolves, and beneath it is something older. Not the self who remembers, but the self who is. Here, you do not need to know your name. You do not need to be useful. You do not need to prove, perform, or protect. In the deepest states of rest, the brain is no longer concerned with, "Who am I?" Instead, it whispers, "I am." No questions, no conditions, just being. This is the healing power of sleep. It strips away the layers, not to destroy them, but to clean them, to reset the signal, to give the self a night off from being a self. Your memories are being sorted, your thoughts gently sifted. The brain takes what matters, lets go of what doesn't, and stores the rest in secret corners you'll never consciously visit. Asterisk, you won't feel it happening. But in the morning, you'll feel lighter, less noise, less clutter, more space inside. This is how the self survives, by releasing itself, night after night, not through control, but through surrender. You don't hold your identity together. Sleep does, not through logic, but through a quiet cycle of forgetting and remembering. You forget who you are, just enough, so that you can become it again. Fresh, clear, real. So sleep now, knowing that nothing is lost. You are not vanishing. You are being carried through the slow rivers of memory, through the soft winds of thought. The self is not a fortress. It is a song, and tonight that song is being rewritten in silence. Let it hum beneath your sleep. Let it tune itself in peace. You are becoming again. How sleep heals the heart. There are feelings you didn't have time to feel today. Griefs tucked into sighs, fears ignored with smiles, longings left waiting. But your mind remembers them all, not to torment you, but to hold you. And now, in the soft silence of sleep, those feelings have space. You don't need to name them. You don't need to fix them. You only need to rest. And while you do,
your brain does the quiet work of healing. It happens in the amygdala, where emotional intensity is stored. During the day, it's reactive, alert, defensive. But in REM sleep, it becomes something else. Instead of bracing for danger, it reprocesses pain. The emotional charge of memories begins to soften. Your brain replays them, without the panic. It lets you feel, but gently, and slowly, what hurt starts to heal. You may dream of moments that never happened, conversations you never got to have, a version of life where things ended differently, and it's okay. That's not delusion. That's the brain resolving emotion through simulation. It's offering you peace, even if only symbolically, and the body responds. Stress chemicals fade, heart rate slows, muscles unclench. You are being remade, not by force, not by effort, but by the simple sacred act of letting go. This is why sleep is not wasted time. It's essential processing time. The mind is not just offline. It's in quiet session with itself, and it's working on your behalf. So if emotion arises as you drift, sadness, joy, longing, let it come. It is safe now. You are not alone with it. Asterisk, your whole body is listening. Your nervous system is adjusting. Your subconscious is holding you with care. The dream may speak in metaphors, but the healing is real. And when you wake, you may not remember what was resolved, but you'll feel the lightness, the space, the quiet shift inside. This is how sleep changes you. Gently, slowly, deeply. Tonight, you are not broken. You are becoming whole. Let sleep be your witness. Let your feelings melt into symbols. Let your healing begin without words. You are held, and you are healing. How the sleeping mind connects the dots. When you close your eyes, the world disappears. But within you, a new world awakens. The brain is no longer bound by rules, no longer shackled by schedules or expectations. It is free, and in that freedom, it begins to create. Dreams seem random, illogical, chaotic, but in truth, they are a kind of deep synthesis. The brain is making new connections, combining memories, emotions, fragments of thought. It puts together things that don't go together in waking life, and finds meaning where none was visible before. This is not failure. This is genius. This is what gave artists visions, what gave scientists answers, what sparked entire breakthroughs during sleep. The double helix, the sewing machine needle, the melodies of Mozart, the equations of Ramanujan, all born in silence, when the conscious mind let go. Because the dreaming mind is limitless, it is not afraid to be strange, not afraid to mix symbols, not afraid to wander, and in that wandering, it solves problems you didn't know you had. It rewrites stories. It suggests new directions. It is not a servant of logic. It is a dancer in the dark. And while you sleep, it choreographs meaning. Your hippocampus is still at work, replaying the day's knowledge, deciding what to keep, what to toss, what to transform. And your neocortex, your center of higher thought, listens with curiosity. The result? Insight. That sudden feeling of I understand, even if you can't explain why. That quiet yes, when all your conscious reasoning said, no, this is not magic. This is sleep's gift to you. An intelligence older than speech. A knowing without explanation. You may wake up with a new idea, a new question, or a new peace you cannot name. Trust it. Because while your eyes were closed, your mind was composing. Asterisk. Not just dreams, but pathways, new mental maps, new creative roads, new clarity, and all you had to do was rest. So sleep deeply tonight, knowing your brain is not idle. It is designing your next beginning. In silence, in symbols, in sleep, the restoration of body and brain. As your mind drifts, something deeper is at work. Not just dreams, not just memory, but a kind of cellular prayer. The body, beneath your awareness, is doing the sacred labor of healing. Proteins are folding into place. Hormones are recalibrating. Immune cells are scanning, patrolling, repairing. You are not just resting, you are rebuilding. Every system, digestive, muscular, immune, neural, has been entrusted to the rhythm of sleep. You don't need to manage it. You don't need to direct it. All you need to do is surrender. Cortisol falls. Inflammation retreats. Neurotoxins are flushed from your brain by the slow pulse of cerebrospinal fluid. The glymphatic system, the hidden cleaning crew of the brain, becomes active only in sleep. While you dream, your brain is literally washing itself like a river at midnight. All the micro-stress, the data clutter, the ambient overload of daily life is slowly rinsed away, and what remains is clarity. Cells are dividing, tissues are being restored. Growth hormone surges quietly, not to grow taller, but to repair what was worn. This is the body's unspoken wisdom. You do not need to power through. You need to let go, because sleep is not a reward for surviving the day. It is a core part of survival itself. Without it, the brain frays. The immune system forgets how to protect you. The emotions lose their compass. The body starts to crumble quietly from within. But with it, everything returns to rhythm, and rhythm is life. The body heals in cycles, not in straight lines. And each night, as you close your eyes, you offer yourself back to that cycle. You are not wasting time by sleeping. You are investing in survival. The deepest kind, the quiet kind. Not the survival of adrenaline, but the survival of wholeness. So let your body do what it knows. Let your cells remember what your thoughts forgot. You are not falling apart. You are falling into place. The system is working. Your healing has begun. Sleep is your sanctuary. And tonight, you are safe within it.
The dreamer and the dream, consciousness beyond waking, you are asleep, but something remains. The body rests, the mind quiets, the ego dims, and yet you still are, not in the usual way, not in words or plans, but in presence. What is this you that survives sleep? What is this awareness that slips free of logic and drifts into dream? You are no longer confined to your senses. You see without eyes, hear without ears, move without muscles. In your dreams, entire worlds bloom from thought. You become others. You fly, you fall, you disappear, and yet remain. Is this hallucination, or is it a deeper layer of consciousness, one unshackled by the rules of waking life? Some say dreams are the static of the brain, noise in the system, but look closer. Dreams carry emotion, symbol, mystery. They are shaped not by accident, but by intention without language. Carl Jung called them messages from the unconscious. Others called them visions, prophecy, or poetry. Neuroscience sees them as pattern makers, the mind testing possibilities without the burden of consequence. So what is dreaming, really? Perhaps it is the playground of consciousness, a place where the self loosens and sees what else it could become, where identity softens into archetype, where meaning is sensed, not explained. And perhaps the boundary between dream and waking is thinner than we believe, because even in waking life, we imagine, project, remember, forget. We believe in stories. So what is real? Is it only what can be touched, measured, repeated,
Or is there another kind of real, the kind that moves the soul, shapes a life, lives in intuition? The sleeping brain is not unconscious. It is just speaking in a different language, one of image, of symbol, of feeling, and in that language, it may be saying something profound, that you are not only a thinker, you are a dreamer, not just in sleep, but always. So sleep now, and let go of the need to understand. You are not losing consciousness, you are slipping into a deeper form of it. You are not vanishing, you are becoming part of a deeper question, one your waking mind cannot answer, but your sleeping self can quietly live. Rest now, dreamer, and let the mystery unfold. The final descent, time, death, and eternal rest. You are approaching the edge of sleep. The edges of the day begin to fade, and time becomes soft. The ticking of the clock no longer matters. The rhythm of your breath is enough. Soon, your mind will loosen its last grip on the day, and as it does, something ancient begins to stir. Because sleep is not just a rest, it is the closest thing we have to returning to the source. It is the letting go of all that is known, and slipping into the unknown, and in that space, the final surrender, you are reminded of something profound. You are not your thoughts, not your body, not your history. You are awareness itself, a fleeting moment of consciousness born into a world of endless cycles. And as you sleep, you are not merely resting, but reconnecting with a vastness you cannot fully comprehend. For sleep, in its deepest sense, is not just about the body. It is the ultimate return, just as death is not an end, but a return to the quiet space before life. In sleep, we meet time itself, not as an enemy, but as an invitation. The ticking stops, the world sleeps, your body and mind become timeless, and there, in the silence, is a whisper, not of words, but of peace. You let go of the world, not in despair, but in trust. Trust that the rhythm of life will continue, even while you rest. Trust that nothing is ever truly lost, and nothing ever truly dies. For sleep is the rehearsal for death, and death is the reunion with all that is. You are not lost when you sleep. You are simply remembering. Sleep is a return to the wholeness from which you were born, and in the quiet of night, the universe is still, waiting to welcome you back. This is why sleep is so profound. It is not just restoration, it is rebirth, a pause in the eternal cycle, where we learn to surrender and trust that the night is always there to hold us. So now, let go. Let go of time. Let go of fear. Let go of who you thought you had to be. Fall into the quiet. Fall into the peace. Let sleep carry you, as it carries us all, and know that in this moment, you are eternally safe. Sleep deeply, sleep freely. You are part of a mystery far greater than your waking self can know, and in this sleep, you are one with the eternal rest of the universe itself. Non-duality in sleep, the illusion of separation. As you sleep, you slip out of the web of self. The story you tell about who you are begins to fade, not as a loss, but as a liberation. In this deep space, the edges of your body blur. Your mind softens into the vastness of being, and for a moment, you are no longer separate. The boundaries dissolve, the I and other disappear. You are not just a person lying on a bed, drifting into sleep. You are the stillness itself. You are the night, the quiet, the infinite expanse that holds all things. The thoughts fade, the worries vanish. The roles you play dissolve like mist in the dawn, and all that is left is simply being. This is non-duality. It is the realization that you have never been truly separate from anything. Not from the trees, not from the stars, not from the very air you breathe. When you sleep deeply, you return to the oneness from which all things emerge. In sleep, the illusion of you is gently peeled away, and what remains is the pure presence that is always here. This is why sleep is so powerful. It is a temporary glimpse into the truth of reality. You are not alone. You are not disconnected. You are the whole universe, breathing itself into being. When you wake, you may forget this truth. The illusion of self may return. But for now, in sleep, you are free of the ego. You are one with the stars. You are the silence. You are the stillness. And in this stillness, you are everything. There is no need to control, no need to strive, no need to defend, because in the deepest sleep, you are already whole, and the world as you know it is simply a passing dream. Let go now, let go of the need to be separate. Fall into the stillness, fall into the truth of your being. Sleep is not just a retreat, it is a return. It is the sacred return to oneness. And in this space, you are free. Sleep deeply. Sleep as the stars sleep, in eternal silence, in eternal peace.
On duality in sleep. The illusion of separation in this stillness, the breath slows, the mind quiets, and the edges of your being fade into the eternal night. The you know, the identity you've built, begins to dissolve into the vastness of all that is. There is no you left in the traditional sense, only awareness floating vast, infinite, non-local. You are no longer the body, you are not your thoughts, you are not your past, you are the consciousness in which all things arise and fall. As you surrender to the quiet embrace of sleep, you become one with the stillness, the silence, the vastness that contains all life. This is the non-dual nature of existence, the profound realization that there is no other. In waking life, we cling to dualities, me and you here and there, good and bad. But in sleep, these boundaries begin to blur. In deep sleep, you dissolve into pure awareness. This awareness is not yours alone. It is the awareness of all things, shared, interconnected, inseparable from the universe itself. There is no separation between you and the world around you. You are not separate from the stars in the sky, the ground beneath you, or the very air you breathe. In sleep, the illusion of the I dissolves, and you rest in the truth of non-duality. You are not a person going to sleep. You are the very consciousness of sleep itself, and in that consciousness you are eternal. Sleep is not an escape. It is a return to the wholeness of all things, where there is no division, no separation, no need to grasp at identity. Let go of the illusion of the I and sink into the stillness. Here you are not bound by time or space. You are part of the infinite moment that stretches far beyond what the waking mind can comprehend. Feel the peace of simply being, the peace that exists when all distinctions fall away. As you drift deeper, let go of the stories, the roles, the labels that you hold so tightly in waking life. Rest now in the pure awareness that you are, and feel yourself expand into the vastness of being. You are not the dreamer of the dream. You are the dream itself, and in that knowing, sleep becomes not just a rest, but a return to the truth of who you really are. Sleep deeply, dreamer, and rest in the boundless peace of non-duality. In this sleep, you are all things, and in all things, you are. You are one with all that is. In this stillness, the breath slows, the mind quiets, and the edges of your being fade into the eternal night. The you know, the identity you've built, begins to dissolve into the vastness of all that is.
There is no you left in the traditional sense, only awareness floating vast, infinite, non-local. You are no longer the body. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. You are the consciousness in which all things arise and fall. As you surrender to the quiet embrace of sleep, you become one with the stillness, the silence, the vastness that contains all life. This is the non-dual nature of existence, the profound realization that there is no other. In waking life, we cling to dualities, me and you here and there, good and bad. But in sleep, these boundaries begin to blur. In deep sleep, you dissolve into pure awareness. This awareness is not yours alone. It is the awareness of all things, shared, interconnected, inseparable from the universe itself. There is no separation between you and the world around you. You are not separate from the stars in the sky, the ground beneath you, or the very air you breathe. In sleep, the illusion of the I dissolves, and you rest in the truth of non-duality. You are not a person going to sleep. You are the very consciousness of sleep itself, and in that consciousness you are eternal. Sleep is not an escape. It is a return to the wholeness of all things, where there is no division, no separation, no need to grasp at identity. Let go of the illusion of the I, and sink into the stillness. Here you are not bound by time or space. You are part of the infinite moment that stretches far beyond what the waking mind can comprehend. Feel the peace of simply being, the peace that exists when all distinctions fall away. As you drift deeper, let go of the stories, the roles, the labels that you hold so tightly in waking life. Rest now in the pure awareness that you are, and feel yourself expand into the vastness of being. You are not the dreamer of the dream, you are the dream itself. And in that knowing, sleep becomes not just a rest, but a return to the truth of who you really are. Sleep deeply, dreamer, and rest in the boundless peace of non-duality. In this sleep, you are all things, and in all things, you are. You are one with all that is. The silence beneath thought. There is a place beneath all dreams, beneath all thoughts, where the world becomes still, utterly still. You do not arrive there through effort, nor through understanding, but through surrender. It is not something to grasp, but something to remember, because you have been there before, in the womb, in the moments between your thoughts, in the breath, before waking. This is the deepest sleep, where you are not even aware of being asleep. No dreams, no images, no names, only presence. In deep sleep, there is no difference between the monk and the murderer, the beggar and the billionaire. All identities fall away, all roles dissolve. There is no higher or lower here, no judgment, no striving, only silence. And in that silence, something sacred is happening. The self is resting in its origin. Not the body, not the ego, but the essence. This essence does not belong to you. It is not yours to own. It simply is. And it is the same in all things. In the bird, the cloud, the sea, the star. Sleep, at its deepest level, is not an absence. It is a return to presence so total that even the I cannot enter with you. No watcher, no one to report back what was seen, just being. And this perhaps is the most sacred thing of all, because here, even the need for peace disappears. You do not need peace, because you have become it. You are no longer trying to rest. You are rest itself. You are not relaxing. You are the field in which relaxation happens. You are not even sleeping. You are the vast, unfathomable stillness in which sleep arises and falls, like waves in an infinite ocean.
This is why, when you wake from deep sleep, you sometimes feel completely renewed, as if a burden you didn't know you were carrying has been lifted, because in that depth, you were nobody, and being nobody is the most healing thing of all. So now, rest even deeper. Let go of trying to understand. Let go of even trying to let go. Just fall. Fall like rain returning to the sea. Fall like the night falling into silence. Fall back into the source from which you came. Sleep now, not as a person, but as presence. And in that presence, all is well. All has always been well.
The healing intelligence of sleep, in the silence of sleep, where the self dissolves and thoughts go still, something ancient begins to stir. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply begins, quietly, precisely, perfectly. This is the body's wisdom, a deep, intuitive intelligence, older than memory, older than language, older than the stars. When the mind steps away, when there is no more you directing, planning, or striving, your body begins to repair, your nervous system recalibrates, your cells synchronize, your immune system awakens, and quietly begins its sacred work. No conscious effort required. Sleep is the time when the body becomes its own healer, and the psyche becomes its own alchemist. Neurochemicals whisper their instructions in the dark. Repair this, quiet that, restore balance here. All without your knowing, all while you float, weightless in the silence of night. Inside your brain, glial cells, the caretakers of your neural garden, are sweeping through your synapses, pruning unnecessary connections, strengthening the meaningful ones. This is memory consolidation, emotional digestion, psychological renewal. Your dreams, strange as they may be, serve a deep purpose, symbolically reorganizing your experiences, processing things that waking thought can't reach. In dreams, the soul speaks in metaphor. It does not speak English. It speaks in symbols, colors, shifts of space and time. This is not nonsense. It is a deeper language, one that the rational mind cannot hear, but the sleeping self understands completely. Asterisk, and beneath, even dreams. Deeper still, in the stage of sleep, where there are no stories, no symbols, not even light, you are returned to something older than consciousness. Here the ego dissolves entirely. There is no name, no memory, no timeline, only stillness. In that stillness, you are being rewritten, not changed, but restored, not fixed, but remembered. The intelligence of sleep does not belong to you. It is not something you own. It is part of the same force that tells flowers when to bloom, tides when to rise, and stars when to die. You are not in control of this process, and that is why it is so healing. The moment you let go, the moment you trust the silence, the moment you allow yourself to disappear into the dark, your body and mind begin to remember who you were before all the noise, before the identity, before the story. Sleep is not unconsciousness. It is sacred intelligence operating behind the veil. You are not gone. You are being held. You are being cared for by forces deeper than thought. So rest. You do not have to do anything. You do not have to be anything. You do not even have to understand. Simply allow the mystery to work on you. Sleep is the great teacher. Sleep is the healer. Sleep is the womb of the cosmos. And tonight, you are cradled in it. There is a silence inside you that is not disturbed by thought, not touched by fear, not broken by time. This silence has no story, no age, no beginning, and in sleep, you return to it. Somewhere between the breath you just took And the next one, something miraculous is happening. Not outside you, but within the very fabric of what you are. Not the surface you, the personality, the roles, but the deep architecture of your being. In the slow waves of deep sleep, brain waves move like tides. Synaptic rivers shift course. Your nervous system lets go of the armor it built all day. This is not just rest. This is transformation. Imagine this. Your memories, even the painful ones, are not being erased. They are being softened, integrated, woven into a larger story that doesn't hurt to carry. Your breath slows not because you try, but because your body trusts the moment. It knows the world can wait. It knows that now is the time to return inward. There is no rush here, no deadlines, no one to impress, no one to disappoint, just you, not the you others see, but the you that is eternal. Your body is not passive in sleep. It is listening. It is listening to ancient rhythms, older than language, older than stars, and your soul is listening too. Not with ears, but with a kind of knowing that doesn't use words. Sleep is sacred space. It is ceremony. It is surrender. And in this surrender, everything you've been holding can finally be released. The fear, the tension, the pressure to be something more. It all melts into the silence. You are not broken. You are tired. And sleep is how you remember your wholeness. Not by striving, but by simply being still long enough for your true self to rise, unburdened, weightless, complete. You are not falling asleep. You are falling back into the arms of something ancient, something that has held you every night of your life, whether you knew it or not. Now, just breathe. Let the breath come and go like waves on a cosmic shore. Let your mind be light. Let your thoughts be feathers. Let your body drift. You are safe. You are loved. You are being repaired by the universe itself. Sleep deeper now. Sink fully, without fear, without resistance, without a single need to understand, restored by the infinite. You do not realize the miracle that happens when you sleep, because it happens in the one place you never look, in the absence of looking. It happens when you vanish, and something else, vast, timeless, takes over. You do not control your heartbeat while you sleep. You do not instruct your lungs to breathe. You do not manage the alchemy that balances your hormones, repairs your tissues, softens your pain, and yet it happens. It happens perfectly, effortlessly, night after night. Because beneath all your doing, all your trying, there is a deeper intelligence, the one that grew your body from a single cell, the one that knows how to dream, how to let go, how to heal. Sleep is not just absence, it is orchestration, a silent symphony where trillions of cells listen to the same ancient rhythm, not random, not blind, but guided by a blueprint written in the fabric of life itself. As you drift, the brain doesn't shut down. It enters sacred cycles, wave after wave of slow, synchronized electricity moves across your cortex like tides across the ocean floor. This is not just rest, it is ritual. Your memories are being organized, your traumas gently deconstructed, your nervous system rebalanced in a darkness more intelligent than light. And all the while, you are unaware, because true healing doesn't need an audience. It only needs surrender. Can you feel it? Beneath the bed, beneath the floor, beneath the mind, there is a field of stillness holding you. A silence that does not judge. A spaciousness that welcomes everything, asks nothing. This stillness is not separate from you. It is you, not the you that carries a name and a past, but the you that was here long before that, and will remain long after. Sleep is not the opposite of waking. It is the place that makes waking possible.
It is the place your soul returns to for nourishment, and it is always ready to receive you. No matter how tired you are, no matter what burdens you carry, no matter how long you've been pretending to be strong, the silence beneath sleep does not care what you've done. It does not care how long you've struggled. It holds you anyway. It says, "Come home. You are safe. You are whole. Rest now. Tonight, let it have you. Let it take every weight from your shoulders. Let it untie every knot of thought. Let it soften your breath until there is no more doing, no more becoming, only being, and being held."
There is a place beneath thought, beneath dreaming, beneath even awareness of sleeping, and it is here now. It is not a destination. It is the origin. You do not enter this place. You disappear into it. There is no door to pass through. There is no map, because the one who seeks is already gone. And in their place, only presence, only stillness, only this. This is not silence as you know it. It is older. It is deeper. It is the silence from which sound is born, the stillness that contains all motion. In this place, there is no you left to be tired, no you left to be healed, no you left to be anything at all. Just breath, just space, just the infinite, humming quietly through your bones. You are not sleeping anymore. You are being held in something deeper than sleep, something that was never born and can never end. Call it nothing, call it everything, call it God if you must. But it does not need a name. The body has vanished into the bed. The thoughts have quieted like a lake after a storm. The story of me has loosened its grip and then faded. And now there is only this, still, vast, infinite. You may not even know this is happening, because it is too subtle for knowing, but something in you remembers, some deeper part of you feels it. The return, the homecoming, the surrender. You are not a human being asleep in a bed. You are awareness resting in itself. You are space, watching space. You are the background behind all things, not separate from the stars or the dark. And this space, this soft, quiet, endless presence, it has never abandoned you. It was here before your first breath. It will be here after your last. It holds the atoms of your body, the pulse of your heart, the silence behind your thoughts. It is you without form. Asterisk. And so now sink even deeper into the stillness, into the softness, into the mystery that heals not through fixing, but through reminding. Asterisk, reminding you that you were always whole, that you were never separate, that this space, this deep healing dark, is your truest home. There is nothing more to do, nowhere more to go, no one more to be. Let the last strands of self unwind, like a candle melting into warm night. You are safe, you are held, you are free, you are not asleep, you are not awake. You are somewhere between, a sacred threshold, where nothing needs to be known, and nothing can be wrong. There is no effort here, not even the effort to rest, because rest has already happened, not just to your body, but to your soul, the part of you that carries your story, your name, your past, has let go, like a boat that's untied from the dock and begins to drift into the ocean of the eternal. And the ocean does not ask who you are. It does not need to know. It only receives. In this place, there is no I, no me, no thoughts reflecting on the day, no planning for tomorrow, no weight of identity, only a wide, vast field of peace, not empty, but full of nothing. A fullness so complete, it quiets every hunger. Here, even time stops breathing. Seconds don't pass, they dissolve.
Minutes stretch like galaxies. There is no pressure, no measurement, only presence. Can you feel it? That slow release that isn't even you doing anything, but the universe undoing itself through you. Your nervous system unwinds its last coil. Your heart sinks into its most honest rhythm. Your brain waves flatten into gentle oceans of delta, not sleep as escape, but sleep as return. Return to the still, infinite cradle that held you before your first thought. There is no end here, no beginning, no movement toward, no coming from, only this space, this breath, this eternal pause that contains all of you and asks nothing in return. And here's the quiet miracle. You don't need to understand this to be healed by it. You don't need to grasp it, name it, define it, because the one who would do that, the mind, has already gone quiet. The mystery is working, the stillness is healing, and you are dissolving into it like a drop into the ocean. No separation, no more you trying to rest, just rest itself, pure, untouched, deeper than deep, the place before being. Into the stillness before self, in this moment, right now, before your thoughts crystallize into words, before memory contextualizes this experience, before you remember who you think you are, there exists a stillness, a profound, boundless awareness that precedes the formation of you. Most of us never notice it. This primordial consciousness, this witnessing presence that exists before the self assembles its familiar story. It's the canvas upon which your identity is painted. It's the silence between your thoughts. It's the knowing before the knower. I'm inviting you on a journey, perhaps the most important journey you'll ever take, into the stillness before self. What we'll explore together isn't religious dogma or New Age fantasy. It's a precise investigation into the nature of consciousness and identity, drawing from neuroscience, contemplative traditions, phenomenology, and the lived experiences of those who have systematically explored the territories beyond the conventional self. This exploration matters because it addresses the most fundamental aspect of human existence, the nature of who and what we are. So take a deep breath, let go of what you think you know, and let's begin. The constructed self. We begin with a radical proposition. The self you think you are, the continuous, stable identity at the center of your experience, is not what it appears to be. This may sound unsettling, even threatening. After all, your sense of self feels so solid, so real, so undeniably there. How could it possibly be a construction? Yet across disciplines from neuroscience to Buddhism, from developmental psychology to phenomenological philosophy, we find convergent evidence that the self is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic process, a complex narrative woven moment by moment. Let's start with developmental psychology. Watch an infant in its earliest months. What you're seeing is consciousness without a fully formed self-concept. The baby experiences sensations, emotions, and perceptions without categorizing them as happening to me. There is awareness, but not yet a clearly defined awareness of being a separate self. Between 18 and 24 months, something remarkable happens. When placed before a mirror with a spot of rouge on their nose, children suddenly recognize themselves. They touch their own nose rather than reaching toward the mirror image. This mirror self-recognition marks the emergence of self-awareness, the beginning of identifying as a distinct separate entity. But this initial self-recognition is just the foundation. Throughout childhood and adolescence, the self becomes increasingly complex. We develop autobiographical memory, stories about who we are. We internalize social roles and cultural narratives. We construct identities based on our relationships, achievements, and beliefs. By adulthood, the self seems so solid that we rarely question it. Of course I'm a self, we think. What else would I be? But neuroscience offers a different perspective. From a neurological standpoint, there is no single location in the brain where self resides. Instead, the sense of self emerges from the dynamic interaction of multiple neural networks. The default mode network activates when we're thinking about ourselves, remembering our past, or imagining our future. The salience network helps us determine what's relevant to us personally. The executive control network manages our goal-directed behavior. Together, these networks create what neuroscientists call self-referential processing, the brain's ongoing narrative about who we are. But this narrative isn't stable. It shifts depending on context. You're a different self at work than at home, different with your parents than with your children, different in moments of joy than in moments of fear. Neuroscientist Anil Seth suggests that the self is a controlled hallucination, the brain's best guess about the entity at the center of experience. This doesn't mean the self is an illusion in the sense of being unreal or non-existent. Rather, it's real, but not in the way we typically assume. It's more like a process than a thing, more verb than noun. This scientific understanding parallels insights from contemplative traditions that have been investigating the nature of self for millennia. In Buddhism, the doctrine of anatta, or no self, doesn't deny our conventional experience of selfhood, but points to its constructed nature. The Buddha compared the self to a chariot. When you look for the essential chariotness, you find only wheels, axle, carriage, and so on. The chariot exists conventionally, but not as an intrinsic, independent entity. Similarly, when we look for the essential self, we find only changing bodily sensations, emotions, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, what Buddhism calls the five aggregates. The self exists as a functional concept, but not as a permanent, unchanging essence. Modern Western philosophers, like Kant, Hume, and more recently, Thomas Metzinger, have arrived at similar conclusions through different methods. Metzinger describes the self as a transparent self-model, transparent because we look through it, rather than at it, typically unable to recognize it as a model, rather than an unchanging reality. What's striking about these diverse perspectives is their convergence. Across disciplines, we find recognition that the self is constructed, dynamic, and more complex than our intuitive understanding suggests. This recognition isn't merely academic, it has profound implications for human suffering. Much of our psychological distress stems from rigid identification with limited self-concepts and compulsive defense of these concepts against perceived threats. When we begin to recognize the constructed nature of self, something shifts. We gain perspective, we create space between awareness and the contents of awareness, and in this space lies the potential for profound freedom. But to explore this freedom fully, we need to investigate something even more fundamental than the constructed self. We need to explore the awareness in which the self-concept arises, the pristine consciousness that precedes self-formation. We need to venture into the stillness before self, awareness without object. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice the sounds around you, the sensation of your body against the chair or floor, the rhythm of your breathing. Now ask yourself, who or what is aware of these experiences? Your first impulse might be to answer, I am, or my mind is.
But look more closely. Before you conceptualize yourself as the experiencer, isn't there already an awareness present, a knowing quality that precedes the thought, I know? This primary awareness, sometimes called pure consciousness, witness consciousness, or in some traditions, the ground of being, is what we're exploring in this section. It's notoriously difficult to talk about because it's not an object of experience. It's the subject, or more precisely, the subjectivity itself, within which all objects of experience appear. It's not something you have, it's what you fundamentally are. The contemplative traditions of the world have developed sophisticated methodologies for investigating this awareness. These aren't religious beliefs to be accepted on faith, but empirical practices for exploring consciousness directly. In the Advaita Vedanta tradition of Hindu, this investigation is called self-inquiry, Atma Vikara. The practitioner repeatedly asks, who am I? Not to find a conceptual answer, but to trace awareness back to its source. Each potential answer, I am this body, I am these thoughts, I am these emotions, is recognized as an object, appearing in awareness, not awareness itself. Through sustained inquiry, the practitioner may experience what the tradition calls pure I am awareness without identification with any particular content of experience. This isn't a dissociative state, but a recognition of what was always already present, the aware space in which all experiences arise. In certain Buddhist traditions, particularly Dzogchen and Mahamudra, practitioners cultivate awareness of awareness itself, Ridpa. The instruction is to rest in the natural state of mind, clear, cognizant presence that recognizes its own nature. This isn't about achieving a special state, but recognizing what's already functioning as the basis of all experience. In the Zen tradition, this is sometimes called the face you had before your parents were born, pointing to a dimensionless awareness that precedes the formation of personal identity. These traditions emphasize that pure awareness isn't something mysterious or transcendent. It's utterly ordinary, so ordinary that we typically overlook it in favor of the contents of experience. It's like the screen on which the movie of life plays. We're typically so absorbed in the movie that we don't notice the screen. But can contemporary science say anything meaningful about awaken? Contemporary science say anything meaningful about awaken? Interestingly, modern neuroscience has begun to investigate states of consciousness where self-referential processing is minimized. Studies of advanced meditators using fMRI have shown distinct neural correlates when practitioners rest in what they describe as open awareness or pure consciousness. These states are characterized by reduced activity in the default mode network, the brain network associated with self-referential thinking, while maintaining high levels of alertness and sensory clarity. This suggests that wakefulness and awareness can persist even when the narrative self is temporarily suspended. Research on psychedelic experiences also offers intriguing parallels. Substances like psilocybin and LSD can temporarily disrupt the brain networks that maintain ordinary self-boundaries, sometimes leading to experiences of oceanic boundlessness, where awareness seems to exist without its usual objects or boundaries. However, neuroscience has fundamental limitations in studying pure awareness. As philosopher David Chalmers has pointed out with his famous hard problem of consciousness, objective third-person methodologies struggle to capture the intrinsic first-person nature of conscious experience. Brain scans can show neural correlates of consciousness, but can't explain why there's something it feels like to be conscious. For direct investigation of awareness itself, First-person methodologies remain essential. This doesn't mean abandoning scientific rigor, but complementing third-person approaches with disciplined introspection and phenomenological inquiry. Philosopher-scientists, like Francisco Varela, have proposed neurophenomenology as a methodology that combines rigorous first-person investigation with third-person neuroscientific measurements. This approach recognizes that consciousness is unique among natural phenomena in being directly accessible from the inside. What these diverse approaches converge on is the recognition that awareness itself is more fundamental than the constructed self. It's the ground from which selfhood emerges, and the space in which self-dissolution can be safely experienced. This recognition has profound implications. If my deepest identity isn't the constructed self, but the awareness in which that self appears, then my fundamental nature transcends the limitations, and fundamental nature transcends the limitations and vulnerabilities of the personal self. I can experience the full range of human experience, including suffering, loss, and mortality, while resting in an awareness that itself remains undamaged by these experiences.
This shift in identity doesn't mean abandoning practical selfhood. We still function in the world with our personal identities intact, but we hold these identities more lightly, recognizing them as functional constructs rather than absolute realities. The stillness before self isn't absence, it's fullness. Not emptiness in the sense of nothing, but emptiness in the sense of boundless potential. The clear space that allows all forms to arise and pass away. As we deepen our exploration, we'll investigate how this recognition transforms our relationship with our thoughts, emotions, and the very nature of experience itself. The machinery of self-formation. To truly understand the stillness before self, we need to examine how the self is continuously constructed, moment by moment. This isn't an abstract philosophical question, but a practical investigation into the machinery of our own minds. The self isn't formed once in childhood and then fixed for life. It's being assembled and reassembled in each moment through predictable cognitive processes. By understanding these processes, we gain the capacity to recognize them as they occur and potentially step out of their automatic functioning. Let's examine the key mechanisms of self-formation. First is identification, the mind's tendency to create a sense of I by attaching to certain experiences while rejecting others. This happens so quickly and habitually that we rarely notice it. A sensation arises, perhaps tension in the shoulders, and instantly there's the thought, I am tense. A memory appears, and immediately it becomes my past. A desire emerges, and we instantly claim it as my want. This process of identification creates the sense of being a separate self, an I that stands apart from experience, rather than being identical with the flow of experience itself. It divides the seamless field of awareness into me in here and world out there. Closely related is the process of narrative construction. The brain is fundamentally a prediction machine, constantly creating models to make sense of incoming data. One of its primary models is the autobiographical self, the ongoing story of who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. This narrative function never rests. It connects disparate experiences into a coherent story, often distorting or selectively emphasizing certain aspects to maintain narrative consistency. This happened because I'm the kind of person who, I failed because I succeeded because my strength is. These narratives aren't necessarily accurate representations of reality. They're functional simplifications that help us navigate complex environments. But when we mistake these stories for literal truth, we confine ourselves to limiting identities and predictable patterns of behavior. Another key mechanism is boundary maintenance, the ongoing process of distinguishing self from not self. This operates at multiple levels, from basic bodily boundaries to psychological categories of mine versus not mine. Recent research in embodied cognition shows how the brain maps the boundaries of the physical body, creating what neuroscientists call peripersonal space, the zone immediately surrounding the body that's processed as an extension of self. This boundary is remarkably fluid. It can expand to include tools we're using, like feeling the road through a car's tires, or contract during states of fear or threat. Similarly, psychological boundaries are continuously maintained through processes of identification and disidentification. We identify with certain thoughts, feelings, and values while distancing ourselves from others. That's not like me, or I would never do that. These boundaries create the sense of being a separate entity, navigating a world of other separate entities, the fundamental dualism at the heart of ordinary consciousness. Perhaps most subtle but pervasive is the mechanism of appropriation, the mind's tendency to claim experiences as mine. This sense of ownership is so fundamental that we rarely question it. My thoughts, my feelings, my perceptions, my body, all suggest a central self who possesses these experiences. But as philosopher Alan Watts asked, who is this I am that claims to own consciousness, when consciousness itself is needed for any ownership to be recognized? The sense of ownership presupposes consciousness, not the other way around. These mechanisms of self-formation, identification, narrative construction, boundary maintenance, and appropriation aren't inherently problematic. They're necessary for practical functioning in the world. The issue arises when they operate unconsciously and rigidly, creating a sense of self that feels solid, separate, and ultimately vulnerable. This vulnerability stems from the inherent instability of a constructed self. If my identity depends on particular attributes, achievements, relationships, or beliefs, then changes to these foundations threaten my very existence. Hence the mind's compulsive efforts to defend and maintain the self-concept against perceived threats. But what if we could become aware of these mechanisms as they operate? What if, instead of being unconsciously identified with the self-formation process, we could witness it from the vantage point of awareness itself? This is precisely what contemplative practices offer: the capacity to observe the machinery of self-formation without being completely captured by it. In mindfulness meditation, practitioners systematically train attention to notice thoughts, emotions, and sensations as they arise, without immediately identifying with them. The instruction note, thoughts as thoughts, feelings as feelings, cultivates the metacognitive capacity to recognize mental events as events in awareness, rather than absolute realities or direct possessions of a self. In more advanced practices, like those of Dzogchen or non-dual traditions, the focus shifts from observing the contents of consciousness to resting as consciousness itself, the aware space in which all phenomena, including the sense of self, arise and pass away. From this perspective, we can watch the fascinating dance of self-formation without being fully identified with its product. We can see thoughts constructing narratives, sensations triggering identification, boundaries being maintained and defended,
all while resting in the stillness that precedes and transcends these activities. This doesn't mean the self disappears entirely. For practical purposes, we still function as apparently separate individuals, but the grip of exclusive identification with a limited self-concept loosens. We recognize selfhood as one aspect of experience, rather than its fundamental ground. In the words of psychiatrist and meditation teacher Jack Cornfield, "You are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your personality, you are the awareness that witnesses all of these." This recognition that awareness itself is more fundamental than any constructed self opens the door to exploring dimensions of consciousness that transcends ordinary selfhood. These include not only the stillness before self, but also the rich terrain of what some traditions call non-dual awareness, where the apparent boundaries between self and other subject and object begin to dissolve. The neuroscience of self and non-self. The brain is often described as the most complex object in the known universe. Within its approximately 3 pounds of tissue lie the neural correlates of our sense of self, and potentially the key to understanding what lies beyond it. Recent advances in neuroscience offer fascinating insights into both how the brain constructs our sense of self and what happens when that construction temporarily ceases. This research provides an important complement to first-person accounts, helping bridge subjective experience with objective measurement. Let's start with the neuroscience of selfhood. As mentioned earlier, no single brain region houses the self. Instead, various networks interact to create our sense of being a coherent, continuous entity. Among these, the default mode network, DM, plays a particularly important role. The DMN includes regions like the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and parts of the parietal cortex. It activates when we're not focused on the external environment, when we're mind-wandering, remembering the past, imagining the future, or thinking about ourselves and others. Neuroscientists often call it the narrative network, because it helps construct the story of who we are. Complementing the DMN is what some researchers call the experiential network, which includes regions involved in present moment bodily awareness, like the insular and anterior cingulate cortex. This network activates when we're attending to immediate sensory experience rather than conceptual thought. The dynamic interplay between these networks helps explain our usual experience of selfhood, a blend of narrative identity, see-to-me life story, and embodied presence, see-to-me current experience. But what happens when the usual boundaries of self dissolve? Neuroscience is beginning to offer compelling answers. Research on psychedelic substances like psilocybin, LSD and DMT shows they dramatically alter activity in the brain networks associated with self-processing. Particularly notable is their effect on the DMN, the network that helps maintain our narrative self. Psychedelics reliably decrease activity and internal connectivity in this network, while increasing connectivity between networks that normally operate independently. This network disintegration and reintegration correlates with subjective reports of ego dissolution, the temporary suspension of ordinary self-boundaries, suspension of ordinary self-boundaries. As the DMN becomes less dominant, the usual divisions between self and world, internal and external, may break down, leading to experiences of unity and boundlessness. Similar patterns appear in studies of advanced meditators. Long-term meditation practice is associated with reduced DMN activity and altered connectivity, both within this network and between networks. During states of non-dual awareness or pure consciousness, some meditators show distinct neural signatures, including decreased activity in self-processing regions, alongside maintained or enhanced activity in attention networks. This suggests that awareness can remain vivid and clear, even as self-referential processing diminishes, precisely what contemplative traditions describe as awareness, without a separate self. Precisely what contemplative traditions describe as awareness, without a separate self. Neurologist Judson Brewer's research at Yale, and later at UMass, has been particularly illuminating. His team found that experienced meditators showed deactivation in key DMN regions during various meditation practices. Interestingly, the same brain regions showed greater deactivation during states described as effortless dance, dysbonus. Interestingly, the same brain regions showed greater deactivation during states described as effortless awareness, compared to more effortful meditation practices. This aligns with contemplative teachings that the recognition of our fundamental nature becomes more natural in accordance with practice. What begins as a deliberate state achieved through concentrated effort may evolve into a spontaneous recognition, may evolve into a spontaneous recognition, Research on flow states, those periods of absorption where self-consciousness recedes and action becomes effortless, shows similar patterns. During flow, the prefrontal cortex associated with self-monitoring shows decreased activity while brain networks involved in concerted sequence.
In tissue decreased activity, while brain networks involved in automatic processing become more engaged. Even more dramatic are studies of near-death experiences, NDEs, which often include profound feelings of unity and transcendence of ordinary self-boundaries. While difficult to study in real time for obvious reasons, retrospective analyses and research with people who've had NDEs suggest these experiences may involve radical alterations in brain network functioning, particularly in regions associated with bodily self-representation. What emerges from this research is a picture of the self not as a fixed entity, but as a dynamic process maintained by specific brain networks. When these networks function differently, whether through meditation, psychedelics, flow states, or other means, our experience of selfhood can transform radically. This doesn't mean consciousness is produced by the brain in a simple sense. The relationship between brain activity and conscious experience remains one of the great mysteries in science. But it does suggest that the brain plays a crucial role in shaping how consciousness manifests, including whether it manifests as a separate self or as awareness without boundaries. Particularly relevant to our exploration is the distinction between consciousness itself and the contents of consciousness, between awareness and what awareness is aware of. Some neuroscientists and philosophers suggest that while specific contents of consciousness, thoughts, perceptions, emotions correlate with specific brain activities, consciousness itself, the aware space in which all experiences arise, may be more fundamental. This perspective aligns with the teachings of contemplative traditions that distinguish between awareness itself and the changing phenomena that appear within it. It suggests that when self-referential brain networks quiet down, what remains isn't unconsciousness but consciousness without its usual objects, awareness aware of itself. The neuroscience of self and non-self remains a rapidly evolving field with many unanswered questions. But the convergence between ancient contemplative insights and modern brain research is remarkable. Both point to the constructed nature of ordinary selfhood
and the possibility of experiencing consciousness beyond these constructions. As this research continues, it may help bridge the sometimes contentious divide between scientific materialism and contemplative wisdom traditions. Rather than seeing these as competing frameworks, we might recognize them as complementary approaches to understanding the profound mystery of consciousness and identity. In the next section, we'll explore practical approaches to investigating the stillness before self, not just as an intellectual understanding, but as a lived reality.
From the stillness, something rises, soft as smoke, slow as mist. You don't chase it. You don't create it. It finds you. This is not thinking. This is not remembering. This is dreaming, but not the chaotic kind. This is the beginning of true inner vision, rising from the depth of your nervous system, gently assembling meaning without words. A light appears, not outside you, but within. A place. Maybe a forest. Maybe a forest. Maybe a quiet room that feels like it always knew your name. You do not decide what appears, but what appears feels inevitable. There's a stream that wasn't there before, a sound of water flowing gently through a timeless space. You walk without legs. You see without eyes. You feel with something older than the body. This is your unconscious speaking, and it does not speak in sentences, but in symbols, not with logic, but with resonance. A door opens in the distance. A bird lands on a branch and watches you. You feel the presence of something benevolent, ancient, just beyond the veil, and somehow it is all you. The forest, the wind, the sky with no sun. Every element in this dream is you, rearranged in the language of imagery. There is no plot here, no story to follow, only the unfolding of scenes like petals of a flower opening in slow motion. You are safe here. You are being dreamed by a mind deeper than your own. No fear, no resistance, only drifting through a world that feels like memory, and yet was never lived. Each tree holds a memory, each sound a secret, but you do not have to understand them. You only have to float, to trust the symbols, to let the unconscious do what it does best, weave wholeness out of mystery. You might glimpse a face from long ago, or a color you've never seen before, or find yourself standing on the edge of a cliff that feels more like a question than a place. This is the language of the deep mind. This is how it heals, not with answers but with spacious, beautiful riddles that soften you from within. Sleep is not absence. It is creation, and you now are the canvas. Dreaming as sacred reflection. You are not walking through a dream. You are floating through your own interior landscape. Everything you see, every flicker of light, every turn of shadow, is made of you. There is no need to interpret. There is no puzzle to solve. You are not a detective in the dream. You are the soil, the sky, the river, the memory. Each scene is like an echo of something deeper, a feeling that had no words during the day, now showing itself in color, in movement, in symbol. Perhaps a hand reaches for you in the dark, or a staircase appears that leads nowhere. These are not random. They are messengers from beneath waking thought. The unconscious is not limited by logic. It doesn't care for language or time. It speaks in ancient rhythms, like a flute playing in a cave no one remembers building. And in that flute song, grief becomes a garden, fear becomes a bridge, love becomes a bird that leads you forward. You may not remember this in the morning, but that doesn't matter, because what heals you doesn't always need to be remembered, only felt, only lived in the quiet spaces beyond thought. In the dream, you are not broken. You are not waiting to be fixed. You are simply shifting, reorganizing, returning,
Asterisk as your body sinks deeper into sleep. The dream becomes more fluid. Images stretch and bend. Boundaries fade. You drift, not in space, but in meaning. A staircase melts into a field. So the field becomes sky. The sky becomes a single candle in the dark. And the flame whispers, "You are safe. You are whole. You are not alone. You are not watching a dream. You are being dreamed by something inside you that knows how to carry you home." And the home is not a place, but a feeling. The feeling of returning to what you truly are. Vast, open, unafraid.
The mystery of subjective experience. Let's begin with a simple question. What is it like to be you right now? Perhaps you're aware of the sensation of your body against a chair or couch. Maybe you're noticing the ambient sounds in your environment, the hum of an air conditioner, distant traffic, or birds outside your window. You might be feeling a slight hunger, or tiredness, or a sense of curiosity about where this video is heading. All of these sensations, emotions and thoughts constitute your subjective experience, your inner world in this moment. And here's the truly remarkable thing. This experience is accessible only to you. No matter how advanced our technology becomes, no one else can directly experience your consciousness. They can observe your brain activity, monitor your physiological responses, and listen to your reports about your experience, but they cannot access your inner world itself. This is what philosophers call the privacy or subjectivity of consciousness. Your experience has a first-person ontology. It exists from your perspective in a way that cannot be reduced to or fully captured by third-person descriptions, no matter how detailed. The Australian philosopher Frank Jackson illustrated this with his famous knowledge argument, also known as Mary's room. Imagine Mary, a brilliant neuroscientist who knows everything there is to know about the physics, chemistry, and biology of color perception, but who has spent her entire life in a black and white environment. When Mary finally sees a red rose for the first time, she learns something new, what it's like to experience the color red. This suggests that there's something about conscious experience that cannot be reduced to physical facts alone. This irreducibility of subjective experience to objective description is what makes consciousness so mysterious. The American chess champion and writer Eliezer Yudkowsky put it elegantly: consciousness is what a third-person description leaves out. Consider the difference between these two statements. Neural patterns in the visual cortex are activating in response to light waves of approximately 650 nanometers. I am experiencing the vibrant redness of a rose. The first statement describes an objective physical process that could be observed by anyone with the right equipment. The second describes a subjective experience accessible only to the person having it. Both might refer to the same event, but they capture fundamentally different aspects of reality. This gap between objective description and subjective experience is what philosopher Joseph Levine called the explanatory gap. No matter how completely we describe the physical processes underlying consciousness, there seems to be an unbridgeable chasm between those descriptions and the experience itself. To put it more directly, why does neural activity feel like anything at all? Why aren't we just complex automata, processing information without any inner experience? In philosopher David Chalmers' words, why is the performance of these functions accompanied by experience? Why doesn't all this information processing go on in the dark, free of any inner feel? This is the hard problem of consciousness. Not just how the brain processes information or enables behavior. These are what Chalmers calls the easy problems. Though they're only easy in a relative sense, they're still enormously complex. No, The hard problem is explaining why and how physical processes in the brain give rise to subjective experience, to an inner world. Various philosophical positions have attempted to address this problem. Dualism argues that consciousness and physical matter are fundamentally different kinds of things. René Descartes' famous "I think, therefore I am" led him to propose that the mind res cogitans is distinct from the physical world res extensa. Modern dualists like Chalmers don't necessarily posit a non-physical soul, but suggest that consciousness might be a fundamental feature of reality, alongside physical properties. Materialism or physicalism holds that consciousness is ultimately nothing more than physical processes in the brain. In this view, the hard problem will eventually be solved through advances in neuroscience, revealing how subjective experience emerges from neural activity. Philosophers like Daniel Dennett argue that many aspects of the hard problem are illusory, the product of confused thinking about consciousness. Panpsychism takes a different approach, suggesting that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, present in some form at all levels of existence. In this view, even elementary particles might possess some form of proto-consciousness, which combines in complex systems like brains to form rich conscious experiences. Idealism turns materialism on its head, arguing that consciousness is the primary reality, and physical matter is in some sense derivative from or dependent on mind. This view, championed by philosophers like George Berkeley historically and Bernardo Kastrup today, suggests that the physical world is ultimately mental in nature. Each of these positions has its strengths and weaknesses, and none has achieved consensus among philosophers or scientists. The hard problem remains unsolved, and some argue it might be unsolvable within our current scientific paradigm. But before we delve deeper into these philosophical questions, let's examine what modern neuroscience can tell us about how our inner worlds emerge from brain activity. Even if science cannot yet explain why consciousness exists, it has made remarkable progress in understanding the neural correlates of conscious experience, the physical processes that accompany our subjective inner lives. The neurobiological basis of inner worlds inside your skull, weighing about 3 pounds, is the most complex object in the known universe, the human brain. With approximately 86 billion neurons forming trillions of connections called synapses, this intricate network somehow generates your entire conscious experience, your inner world. How does it accomplish this remarkable feat? Modern neuroscience has made extraordinary progress in identifying the neural correlates of consciousness, NCCs, the specific patterns of brain activity that correspond to conscious experience. While these correlations don't solve the hard problem of why these activities feel like anything at all, they do give us insight into the physical basis of our inner worlds. Let's start with a fundamental distinction in neuroscience: the difference between the contents of consciousness and the state of consciousness. The contents of consciousness refer to the specific experiences you're having at any moment: seeing a red apple, feeling a pain in your knee, remembering your childhood home. Different contents activate different neural circuits, primarily in the cortex, the wrinkled outer layer of the brain that's especially developed in human. Visual experiences, for instance, correlate with activity in the visual cortex at the back of the brain. Different aspects of vision, color, motion, facial recognition activate different specialized regions. Similarly, auditory experiences correlate with activity in the auditory cortex, and so on for other sensory modalities. More complex conscious contents involve widespread networks across multiple brain regions. A memory of your childhood home might activate visual areas, the image of the house, emotional circuits in the limbic system,
the feelings associated with home, and parts of the hippocampus involved in spatial and episodic memory. The state of consciousness, on the other hand, refers to your overall level of consciousness, whether you're awake, asleep, dreaming, under anesthesia, or in a coma. These states correlate with global patterns of brain activity and connectivity. When you're fully conscious, your brain exhibits complex, differentiated patterns of activity that are nonetheless highly integrated across regions. This balance of differentiation, different regions doing different things, and integration, regions working together coherently, seems crucial for consciousness. During deep sleep, under general anesthesia, or in certain coma states, this balance shifts. Brain activity becomes either too synchronized, different regions doing the same thing, reducing information complexity, or too fragmented regions, unable to communicate effectively. Either way, consciousness fades or disappears. One of the most influential scientific theories of consciousness, integrated information theory, EIT, developed by Giulio Tononi, formalizes this insight. EIT proposes that consciousness corresponds to a system's capacity to integrate information, measured by a value called phi. When phi is high, when a system can generate and integrate large amounts of information, consciousness is present. When phi is low or zero, consciousness is absent. Another leading theory, the global workspace theory, proposed by Bernard Baars and developed by Stanislas Dehaene, suggests that consciousness emerges when information is broadcast widely across the brain. In this view, unconscious processing occurs in specialized encapsulated modules, but conscious experience happens when information gains access to a global workspace that can be shared across multiple brain systems. Recent research combining these approaches has identified what some neuroscientists call a posterior hot zone in the brain, regions in the back of the cortex that seem especially important for conscious experience. Damage to these areas can lead to specific deficits in consciousness, such as blind sight, where people can respond to visual stimuli without consciously seeing them, or visual agnosia, where people see objects but can't recognize them. But consciousness doesn't just depend on which neurons are firing, it also depends on how they're firing. Specific frequencies of neural oscillations, rhythmic patterns of activity, correlate with different conscious states. For example, gamma oscillations, 30 to 100 Hz, have been linked to active conscious processing, while slow delta waves, 1 to 4 Hz, predominate in deep sleep. The chemical environment of the brain also profoundly affects consciousness. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine modulate different aspects of conscious experience. Psychedelic substances like psilocybin and LSD can dramatically alter consciousness by binding to specific receptors, particularly serotonin, 5-HT2A receptors, leading to increased connectivity between brain regions that don't normally communicate. These scientific advances have given us unprecedented insight into the neural mechanisms underlying consciousness. Yet even as we map these correlations with increasing precision, the fundamental mystery remains. How and why does any of this physical activity give rise to subjective experience? Why does it feel like something to be a brain? To address this question, we need to step back and consider why inner worlds evolved in the first place. What adaptive advantage did consciousness provide that led to its emergence and persistence? The evolutionary emergence of consciousness. Why did consciousness evolve? This seemingly simple question opens up fascinating territory at the intersection of evolutionary biology, psychology, and philosophy. From a purely functional perspective, it's not immediately obvious why subjective experience would be necessary for survival and reproduction. In theory, an organism could process information about its environment, make decisions, and execute behaviors without any accompanying conscious experience, like a sophisticated biological robot running on algorithmic processes. Yet consciousness did evolve, which suggests it must serve some adaptive function. What might that function be? One possibility is that consciousness emerged as a solution to the problem of information integration. As organisms became more complex, with multiple sensory systems and behavioral capabilities, they needed a way to combine diverse streams of information into a potent representation of their environments and themselves within it. Consciousness might be the brain's way of creating a unified model of reality that can guide behavior more effectively than disconnected processing modules. Another theory suggests that consciousness evolved primarily for social purposes. Human beings are ultrasocial animals, whose survival is always dependent on complex cooperation. To predict and influence others' behavior, a crucial skill in social environments, it helps enormously to have a model of their internal states, their beliefs, desires, fears, and skills. But how could we model others' internal states if we weren't aware of our own? In this view, consciousness evolved first as self-awareness that enabled social awareness, allowing for the rich social coordination that is capable. The philosopher Nicholas Humphrey proposes that consciousness evolved as a social tool that allows us to understand and predict others' behavior by introspecting on our own situation. He suggests that capacity for sensation, raw feeling, evolved separately from perception, ovation, or action. This separation allowed for the development of individual lives that serve as models for understanding others. Other theories focus on the role of consciousness in learning and adaptation. Consciousness might allow organisms to detect their own errors, simulate potential futures, and rehearse behaves mentally before exerting them physically. These capabilities would confer significant advantages in unpredictable environments where fixed behavioral programs wouldn't suffice. The psychologist Merlin Donald suggests that human consciousness evolved through stages linked to changes in how information was stored and shared. From episodic memory, shared with other primates, to mimetic cultures based on bodily representation, to mythic cultures based on language, to theoretical cultures based on external symbolic storage like this. Each transition point or scope of human consciousness. A particularly intriguing perspective comes from the philosopher Peter Godfrey Smith, who has studied consciousness, sleep consciousness. These animals represent a completely independent evolution of complex consciousness, having diverged from our lineage over 500 million years ago. Their distributed nervous systems, those of their neurons and their arms, suggest that consciousness could evolve in very different biological stages.
This raises a profound question. How similar are the inner worlds of different species? What is it like to be an octopus, or a bat, or a honeybee? The philosopher Thomas Nagel famously argued that we cannot truly know what it's like to be a bat, because bat consciousness is organized around echolocation, a sensory modality humans lack. Yet, evolutionary continuity suggests that other mammals, at least, probably have inner experiences with similarities to our own. The evolutionary perspective suggests that consciousness likely emerged gradually, with simpler forms of awareness in earlier organisms, giving way to increasingly complex inner worlds as nervous systems evolved greater processing capacity. Consciousness isn't binary, present in humans and absent elsewhere, but exists on a spectrum of complexity and richness across the animal kingdom and perhaps beyond. This evolutionary continuity also highlights the relationship between consciousness and embodiment. Our inner worlds are profoundly shaped by the kinds of bodies we have and how those bodies interact with the environment. A bat's consciousness is echolocatory because it has the body of a bat. Human consciousness is visual, verbal, and manipulative because we have the bodies of humans. The philosopher Alva Noé argues that consciousness isn't something that happens purely inside the brain, but is a kind of skillful activity that involves the whole embodied organism engaging with its environment. In this inactive view, consciousness emerges from this dynamic interaction rather than being generated solely by brain activity. This embodied perspective on consciousness connects with recent developments in robotics and artificial intelligence. If consciousness is intrinsically tied to embodiment and environmental interaction, could artificial systems develop their own forms of inner experience? And what might those experiences be like? As we move further into the age of intelligent machines, these questions about the evolutionary origins and nature of consciousness take on new urgency and relevance. The development of human inner worlds, while consciousness may have evolutionary roots that stretch back millions of years, each individual human develops their own unique inner world over the course of childhood and beyond. This ontogenetic emergence of consciousness, how it unfolds within a single lifetime, reveals much about the nature of our inner experience. A newborn infant doesn't enter the world with a fully formed consciousness like an adult's. Instead, the richness and structure of inner experience develop gradually through a complex interplay of biological maturation and environmental interaction. The developmental psychologist Alison Gopnik describes the infant's consciousness as lantern consciousness, a state of being awake to everything at once, without the focused attention that characterizes adult awareness. Young babies seem to experience a kind of undifferentiated awareness in which the boundaries between self and world, and between different sensory modalities, are blurred. As the brain matures, particularly the prefrontal cortex responsible for executive functions like attention and impulse control, consciousness becomes more focused, what Gopnik calls spotlight consciousness. The child begins to direct attention selectively, filtering the flood of sensory input to focus on what's relevant. Language acquisition marks another crucial milestone in the development of inner worlds. As children learn to name objects, actions, and eventually abstract concepts and mental states, they gain new tools for structuring their experience. Language doesn't just allow communication with others, it enables new forms of thought and self-awareness. The psychologist Lev Vygotsky emphasized how inner speech, the internalized dialogue we carry on with ourselves, emerges from social interaction. Children first experience language as something external, used to communicate with caregivers. Gradually, they begin talking to themselves out loud, private speech, which eventually becomes silent inner speech, a crucial component of human consciousness and self-regulation. This developmental progression highlights how profoundly our inner worlds are shaped by culture.
The concepts, categories, and narratives available in our cultural environment provide the raw materials from which we construct our subjective experience. Consider how differently consciousness might develop in a child raised in a hunter-gatherer society versus an industrialized urban environment, or in a culture with two basic color terms versus one with a dozen. The anthropologist Don Kulik documented how people in a Papua New Guinean community interpret dreams as visitations from spirits rather than products of their own minds, a fundamentally different way of experiencing inner life than in Western cultures. The developmental psychologist Catherine Nelson suggests that children construct autobiographical consciousness, the sense of having a life story that unfolds over time through narrative practices learned from their culture. By engaging in storytelling about their experiences, children learn to organize their memories and anticipations into coherent narrative wholes, creating a sense of continuous selfhood. This points to another crucial aspect of human inner worlds. They are inherently temporal, extending both backward through memory and forward through anticipation. The psychologist Endel Tulving distinguished between episodic memory, remembering specific experiences from one's past, and semantic memory, factual knowledge. Only episodic memory, he argued, involves mental time travel, the capacity to re-experience past events in one's imagination. This capacity for mental time travel in both directions, remembering the past and imagining the future, may be uniquely human. It creates an inner world that extends far beyond the present moment, allowing us to learn from experience and plan for contingencies in ways that transform our relationship with time itself. The emergence of a robust sense of self represents another milestone in the development of inner worlds. While rudimentary self-recognition appears around 18 months, visible in the famous mirror test, where toddlers recognize a mark placed on their face while looking in a mirror, a full autobiographical self takes years to develop. By about age 4 to 5, children develop what psychologists call theory of mind, the understanding that others have mental states different from their own. This capacity for mind reading transforms social interaction and enriches inner experience by enabling more sophisticated forms of empathy, deception, and cooperation. Throughout childhood and adolescence, inner worlds continue to develop in complexity. Abstract thinking emerges, allowing children to contemplate hypotheticals and invisibles. Metacognition, thinking about thinking, becomes more sophisticated. Social cognition expands to include understanding of complex emotions, mixed motivations, and cultural norms. These developmental changes correspond to maturation in brain systems, particularly the prefrontal cortex, which doesn't fully mature until the mid-20s. This protracted development allows human inner worlds to be profoundly shaped by cultural learning, rather than being genetically predetermined. Even in adulthood, our inner worlds continue to develop and change. Meditation practices can transform attentional capacities and the phenomenology of consciousness itself. Psychedelic experiences can temporarily dissolve the boundaries of the self. Trauma can fragment inner experience, while therapy can help reintegrate it. And aging brings its own changes to consciousness, with potential shifts in emotional regulation, time perception, and narrative identity. This developmental perspective reminds us that consciousness is not a static phenomenon, but a dynamic process that unfolds throughout the lifespan, shaped by biology, experience, and culture. Our inner worlds are not given but made, constructed through complex interactions between our embodied brains and our physical and social environments. The architecture of inner experience Having explored how inner worlds emerge evolutionarily and developmentally, let's dive deeper into their structure. What are the essential components and dynamics of conscious experience? The first thing to notice is that consciousness is fundamentally multimodal. Our inner worlds integrate diverse kinds of experience, sensory perceptions, bodily sensations, emotions, thoughts, memories, imaginings, and more. These different modes of experience have distinct qualities, what philosophers call qualia, or the qualitative feel of experiences, yet somehow form a unified field of consciousness. This unity of consciousness is remarkable when you consider that different aspects of experience are processed in distinct brain regions. Visual information is primarily processed in the occipital lobe, auditory information in the temporal lobe, bodily sensations in the parietal lobe, and executive functions in the prefrontal cortex. Yet somehow these distributed processes are integrated into a single conscious experience. Within this unified field, consciousness has a figure ground structure. Some contents stand out as the focus of attention, the figure, while others recede into the background of awareness. This structure isn't fixed, but constantly shifting as attention moves. Right now, as you listen to these words, they likely occupy the foreground of your consciousness, while your bodily sensations, ambient sounds, and peripheral vision form the background. This dynamic figure-ground relationship reflects the limited capacity of attention. Despite the brain's enormous processing power, consciousness can only foreground a small fraction of available information at any moment. This limitation creates what philosophers call the bottleneck of attention, a constraint that shapes the very structure of experience. Another fundamental feature of consciousness is its intentionality, the fact that conscious states are typically about something. When you see a tree, your visual experience is of the tree. When you remember a conversation, your memory is of that conversation. This aboutness, or directedness, toward objects, real or imaginary, is a defining characteristic of mental states. Consciousness also has an inherent first-person perspective, a point of view from which experience unfolds. This perspective creates what philosopher Thomas Metzinger calls a phenomenal self-model, the experience of being a self located at the center of a perceptual and action space. This perspectival structure isn't just a feature of visual perception, but characterizes consciousness across modalities. Time consciousness forms another crucial dimension of inner experience. As Edmund Husserl and later phenomenologists observed, our experience of the present moment isn't an infinitesimal point, but has temporal width. We experience events as unfolding over time, with each moment carrying retentions of the just past and protensions of the just about to be. This temporal structure allows us to experience continuity and change, melody and motion. Within our inner worlds, different states of consciousness offer radically different architectures of experience. Consider the differences between normal waking consciousness, characterized by clear subject-object boundaries, linear temporal experience, and realistic perceptual content. Dream consciousness, with its fluid boundaries, narrative discontinuities, acceptance of impossibilities, and typically diminished metacognitive awareness. Meditative states, which can involve heightened present moment awareness, reduced conceptual thinking, and sometimes altered self-experience. Psychedelic states, which can include geometric visual hallucinations, synesthesia, blending of sensory modalities, and profound alterations in the sense of self and reality.
These varied states of consciousness suggest that the architecture of inner experience is not fixed but can be radically reconfigured by changes in brain activity. One of the most fascinating aspects of consciousness is its recursive capacity. We can be aware of being aware. This metacognitive dimension allows humans to reflect on their own experience, evaluate their thoughts, and even deliberately alter their consciousness through practices like meditation or through use of psychoactive substances. The philosopher Harry Frankfurt distinguished between first-order desires, wanting something, and second-order desires, wanting to want something. This capacity for higher-order awareness enables distinctively human forms of self-regulation and values alignment. We can want to stop wanting cigarettes, or wish we cared more about climate change, recursive operations on our own motivational states. This recursive quality reaches its peak in what philosopher Robert Kegan calls self-authorship, the capacity to take one's own meaning-making as an object of reflection and revision. At this level, we don't just have an inner world, we actively participate in shaping it according to our values and purposes. Inner worlds also contain varying degrees of what neuroscientist Anil Seth calls controlled hallucination. In this predictive processing view of consciousness, perception is not passive reception of sensory data, but active construction of models that predict sensory inputs. Most of what we experience as reality is actually the brain's best guess about what's out there, constrained by, but not determined by sensory information. This constructive aspect of consciousness explains phenomena like placebo effects, where expectation shapes physical experience, priming effects, where subliminal cues influence perception, and confirmation bias, where we tend to notice evidence that supports our existing beliefs. Our inner worlds are not mirrors of reality, but interpretive models shaped by prior expectations, cultural frameworks, and personal history. Finally, it's important to recognize that inner worlds include not just actualities, but possibilities. Through imagination, we can explore counterfactual scenarios, anticipate future states, and create fictional realities. This capacity to transcend the immediate present through mental simulation may be one of consciousness's most adaptive features, allowing humans to prepare for contingencies and create innovations that transform their environments. The architecture of inner experience is thus revealed as dynamically structured, yet remarkably flexible, a complex system that integrates multiple modalities, operates across temporal dimensions, generates a perspectival center, enables recursive awareness, actively constructs models of reality, and facilitates imaginative exploration of possibilities. The dream that rebuilds you. You are not just dreaming now, you are being reassembled, not by force, but by grace. Here, your brain does its deepest work, not by analyzing, not by solving, but by allowing. Images, memories, and sensations, some joyful, some strange, some long buried, rise and fall, like tides. They touch one another, they melt, they merge, and somewhere in that gentle dance, something unspoken begins to make sense. Not the kind of sense you can explain, but the kind you feel in your chest, the kind that makes your breath deepen without knowing why. Maybe a moment from years ago rises, a hallway you walked down as a child, a song your mother used to hum, a look in someone's eyes that stayed with you. It appears not as memory but as energy, and it shifts.
It becomes part of a greater pattern, a deeper order, one that tells you you are whole, even now. Integration is not erasure, it's transformation. Nothing is thrown away. Everything is repurposed. Your brain moves through waves, slow, deep, harmonious. Each wave carries fragments of experience across the neural sea, connecting dots, dissolving trauma, weaving new maps for the morning to follow. It is sacred work, and it happens beneath your awareness, like roots growing beneath the surface of a calm, moonlit garden. You don't need to know how this works. You don't need to participate, because your system is ancient. It has evolved for this. It remembers how to mend itself. Sleep is not a shutdown. It's a ritual of reweaving, a nightly ceremony, guided by an intelligence far deeper than thought. And in this moment right now, as your muscles loosen, as your mind fades into velvet, as the last echoes of the day disappear, you are becoming new, not different, not someone else, but more fully yourself, whole, quiet, reclaimed. You are not just resting, you are being rewritten, line by line, neuron by neuron, by an author that lives deep within. You don't need to understand this process. You only need to trust it. While you sleep, your brain is silently pruning what's no longer needed, shedding old thoughts like dead leaves. And at the same time, it's planting seeds, new neural paths, new meanings, gently embedding new possibilities into your being. The dream is not a story, it's a signal, a symbol, a secret carried from one layer of you to another. You may drift into a dream of walking through a house you've never seen, but somehow it feels like yours. You turn a corner, a door opens, and the room behind it holds a feeling you never had words for, until now, and that feeling begins to soften something you've been carrying. It doesn't fix, it doesn't explain, it simply allows, and in the allowing, the burden dissolves. This is how the brain heals, not by resisting the past, but by giving it space to reform. Old fears lose their sharpness. Old stories lose their edges. Even pain becomes a shape that can move again. It becomes fluid. It becomes art. This is what deep sleep does. It is not escape. It is integration, a nightly ritual of becoming whole again. All of this healing, this restructuring, this quiet spiritual repair, happens without your awareness, because you don't need to participate. You only need to trust. The same way the heart keeps beating, the same way the lungs keep breathing, the same way the stars continue to burn in the night. Some things are too deep for conscious effort. They require silence. They require surrender. They require sleep. And now, you are in it. Not beside it. Not imagining it. In it. The deep core of sleep. The sacred root of dreaming. The living silence that rearranges your entire inner world without asking for anything but stillness. This is healing beyond words, beyond story, beyond thought. You don't need to wake up fixed. You only need to wake up softer, and that softness is already arriving. The mind beneath the mind. You are not dreaming now. You are not thinking. You are not remembering. You are becoming. The brain sinks into its lowest frequencies, delta waves, slow as eternity, wide as silence. And in that rhythm, something ancient begins to stir. Not emotion, not cognition, something older, the core intelligence of life itself, the part of you that knew how to become a body before you had language, is now doing its quiet work. No story is needed, no reason, no permission, only this, surrender. You are not healing parts of yourself.
You are unifying what was once fragmented, the mind, the body, the past, the unspeakable, is being drawn together like rivers folding into the sea. You don't notice it, because it happens beneath noticing. But in this moment, your trauma is melting, not disappearing, not forgotten, just reabsorbed into something larger than it. In the darkness of deep sleep, your brain weaves you back into the cosmos. You are no longer a separate self repairing itself. You are nature rebalancing. You are the tide coming in. Hormones shift, neurotransmitters recalibrate, cellular processes reset. But that is just the biology. Behind it, beneath it, within it, is the sacred intelligence of wholeness. Not the kind you learn in school, not the kind you speak of at all, but the kind that knows, without needing to know. This knowing whispers in patterns, not sentences, in stillness, not commands. It reshapes your emotional landscape, as a river smooths the stones beneath it, and you feel nothing, because it is working. True healing is invisible. You don't feel it happening. You feel it when it's done. Like sunlight, you didn't notice until everything around you bloomed. And so you rest, not on a bed, but in the arms of something much vaster, existence itself, holding you, repairing you, remembering you into wholeness. You are not a human sleeping. You are the universe reconfiguring itself in the shape of peace.
Deep sleep and the hidden intelligence of healing you are not just sleeping, you are dissolving. And in that dissolution, beneath thought, beneath dream, something inside you is quietly repairing the entire system that is you. There are no words in this place, only waves, soft, wide, slow pulses of restoration moving through your brain, through your body, through your story. The brain in deep sleep. At this depth, your brain is no longer interested in the outside world. The senses are dimmed, muscles are quiet, awareness has receded, like the tide, and into that emptiness, a secret work begins. Your brain enters slow-wave sleep, a rhythm so deep, so sacred. It resembles the heartbeat of the universe. The thalamus, the part of your brain that filters reality, shuts the gates. The cortex, the layer that spins stories, goes still. And what remains is pure, raw process. Healing, integration, rebalancing. These waves, called delta waves, are slow, just 1 or 2 pulses per second. But in their slowness lies their power. They carry no content, no message, just rhythm. A rhythm that synchronizes your entire being, your immune system, your memory centers, your emotional regulation networks, your stress systems, your internal chemistry, all of them recalibrated, without force, without effort, without you needing to do a thing. This is not unconsciousness. It is sacred consciousness, too vast to be observed directly. The alchemy of memory. Somewhere in this depth, your hippocampus, the keeper of memory, begins its secret ritual. It selects from the thousands of fragments collected throughout the day, a sound, a glance, a moment of tension, a strange idea, a feeling you couldn't name, and it begins to sort them. Some are stored, safely encoded for the long term. Some are let go, discarded, gently. Some are transformed, woven into the greater tapestry of your identity. Not all of this will be remembered. Not all of it needs to be. Because the purpose is not to keep everything. It is to become lighter, more coherent, more aligned. In deep sleep, your memories are not just kept. They are understood. Not consciously, but emotionally. Not in words, but in peace.
The brain is reshaping you, silently, lovingly, organically. What once felt overwhelming now finds its place in the greater whole, not because it's gone, but because you've changed around it. You have grown bigger than it, and so it no longer controls you. That's what deep sleep does. It returns you to your full size. The nervous system exhales. As your brain settles into its slowest rhythm, the body begins to mirror this peace. Your vagus nerve, the great pathway of calm, activates deeply. Blood pressure drops, heart rate slows, muscles release ancient tension. Even your organs, your liver, your stomach, your gut, receive instructions. Now you can rest. Now you can heal. Inflammation decreases. Cellular repair begins. Digestion resets. All systems in harmony. Not because you tried, but because you surrendered. You are not relaxing anymore. You are returning to the baseline nature of life, which is not stress, not urgency, not noise. It is balance. It is breath. It is being. Inner reconciliation in the quietest folds of your mind. A meeting takes place, not between people, but between selves. The version of you who worried today meets the part of you that knows how to let go. The version of you that carries regret meets the part of you that forgives without condition. The younger self, still holding fears from long ago, is invited, not pushed, to rest inside the arms of your present wisdom. They don't talk. They don't fight. They don't even need to understand each other. They simply meet in this temple of sleep, and the result is not explanation, but peace. Your mind is not one voice. It is a choir, and in deep sleep, that choir returns to harmony. Cycles within cycles, every 90 minutes. Your sleep cycles rotate. From deep sleep you rise briefly into REM, where dreams become vivid, strange and symbolic. Then you sink back into silence, back to slow wave depth, back to the great rhythm. This spiral continues throughout the night, downward, inward, upward, outward, like breathing, like ocean tides, like galaxies. And every pass through this cycle heals you in a different way. REM dreams help you process emotion, make sense of complexity, and rewrite the stories you tell yourself. Slow wave sleep heals the body, stabilizes the mind, and dissolves the day into integration. You need both, and you are moving through both, right now, effortlessly. Healing you didn't ask for you may wake up tomorrow and not remember your dreams. You may feel like nothing happened, but something did. Your mind was cleaned, your story was edited, your being was restored. That knot in your chest, it may be softer. That old tension in your jaw, loosened. That vague sense of being scattered, drawn back into coherence. And not because you worked for it, but because your biology loves you. You are not healed by your will. You are healed by your nature. Your body knows what wholeness is, and every night it returns you to it. A mind at rest with itself. Somewhere in this dreamless silence, you realize you don't need to fix yourself. You only need to listen and allow the deeper rhythms to do their work. Your brain doesn't need a map. It is the map. Your spirit doesn't need to be explained. It remembers where it's going. And you right now are not broken. You are becoming again, from the inside out. Not because of what you know, but because of what you are. Closing the circle, as this part of your night deepens, you may feel yourself become even lighter, even slower, even more fluid. Your thoughts may now drift like fog, or dissolve completely. This is the natural conclusion of integration, when nothing remains to be solved, only held. You are not alone in this.
Millions of others are healing tonight with you, floating in this same space of stillness, unaware and yet deeply connected. This is what it means to be human, not to always be awake, but to surrender to the sacred dark and trust the light to return in the morning. Sleep is not the end of consciousness. It is its sacred undercurrent, its restoration, its secret route. You are in it now, and it is carrying you, not forward, not backward, but deeper, into self, into source, into silence. Let go, let everything go, and allow this sacred process to complete itself without effort, without awareness, without fear. You are not drifting off. You are arriving, fully, quietly, home.